1980s and early 1990s, Microsoft was expanding rapidly. To keep this growth going, they were practicing anti-competitive practices, which prevented their competitors from integrating their software with their own. This violated the Sherman Antitrust Act, which effectively made Microsoft a monopoly. So what is a monopoly? A monopoly is when one firm holds total control over a market. In a monopoly, consumers are price takers and producers are price makers. This one firm usually makes one product and can set the price and quantity for it. So as you see on our graph, we have P star and Q star. Those are the optimal points for the market, which usually will reach by competition. However, since firms can set their price in a monopoly, that makes the price typically way too high and the quantity too low. And this enables them to have profit margins that are way too high as well, which is indicated by this area.
Now, Microsoft has said that a lot has changed here, that the marketplace has changed, and therefore all of their conduct is of no significance. The central fact remains that in the operating system market and the applications market, where Microsoft has a monopoly, their market share has increased consistently since the day this trial began. They are currently over 95% market share in both of those markets. Their profit margin for Windows alone is an astounding 78%. By every measure, they are a monopolist. By every measure, they have violated the Sherman Act.
Imagine, it's the 1990s. You just got your first personal computer. Awesome. But what can you really do with it? The most intriguing option is to surf the web, obviously. But in order to do that, you'd have to drive down to the store and purchase a web browser. At the time, it would be Netscape's Navigator, most likely. But what Microsoft did was sell software, and eventually, they bundled their own browser in the same box as the software. This completely removed the need for any other browser. In a matter of years, this technique turned Microsoft into a monopoly. In 1991, the Federal Trade Commission was suspicious of Microsoft's rapid growth in the market. They conducted an investigation. They did this again in 1993, and nothing came of either attempt to bust the tech giant on any type of infraction. However, in 1995, Microsoft was investigated by the Department of Justice, who found them guilty of a few malpractices. The main problem was that Microsoft was creating exclusivity contracts with manufacturers that excluded competitors from working with them. The investigation ended with a consent decree, forcing Microsoft to stop this practice. However, in 1998, Microsoft was found to be violating this decree and forming a monopoly. The Department of Justice filed suit against Microsoft in May of the same year.
Moving into the actual case, on May 1998, the Department of Justice sued against Microsoft. Microsoft was mainly blamed for illegal practices, including demanding from the computer producers to include Microsoft Software Internet Browser as part of the package of Windows installation, and additionally for making it hard for devices manufactured by Microsoft to install competitive software. During the trial, Microsoft representatives gave a lot of vague answers to the judges. More specifically, the CEO of the company, Bill Gates, used a lot of different expressions such as "I don't know" or "I don't remember," which made the situation even worse. Moving, Microsoft during the trial provided a lot of videotapes to the court in order to protect themselves. One of these videos showed how removing Internet Explorer caused a lot of malfunctions to the system. However, after a long research, this video was later proven to be fake. The former executive of Microsoft took fully the blame, stating that the video was filmed from a wrong screen and made sure that a new video was actually provided to the court. Economists in support from Microsoft published an open letter stating that the antitrust policies had two main negative effects. First of all, and most importantly, they would harm local consumers, and additionally, they would have a negative influence into the performance of a firm which operates in a global scale. In the end, Microsoft lost the case. Microsoft was actually found accused of monopolistic violations.
After a long court process and a lot of witnesses and hearings, the Judge Jackson finally decided that Microsoft was in fact a monopoly and they violated the Sherman Antitrust Act. And as a result of this, they had to split, or Microsoft had to split into two different companies, one that sold computers and one that sold software. But Microsoft, of course, did not like this because they wanted to stay as one company, so they decided to appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court. Because if the Supreme Court overturned their case, they're a higher ranking court. They're the highest ranking court. So a higher ranking court can overrule a lower ranking court. So the Supreme Court denied to hear the case, so they did not end up listening to it. But a lower level appellate court did agree to hear the case on the grounds that that Judge Jackson, the judge of the original case, was talking to reporters in private about the case, and you're not allowed to do that if you're a judge. And then as a result of this, the press gave really bad coverage of Microsoft, and as a result of this, Microsoft believed that that's what lost them the case. So they appealed to the higher level appellate court, and the appellate court decided to overturn this decision. And they could do this because they were a higher ranking court than the district court that Microsoft was originally tried in. But they didn't let Microsoft completely get away with it. They allowed them to stay as one company, but they, on the condition that Microsoft made it easier for other companies to integrate their software with the Microsoft operating system. So after a long trial, Microsoft got to stay as one company, but they didn't completely get away with it. They still had some restrictions. So today, the computer software industry is as healthy as ever. There are many different companies producing software like Apple, Dell, Linux, and many others. The market is very healthy because it is very competitive. There are a lot of different firms who are fighting for buyers. Consumers benefit as a result of this competitive market as well. So overall, the market is a better place because of these trials.